Hours later. "Sophia, you're leaving already?" The valet's polite voice startled her as she stepped out of the grand ballroom. "Yes," she said quickly, pulling her shawl tighter around her shoulders. The night had turned colder, or perhaps it was the weight of Vanessa's words that chilled her to the bone. "Please have the car brought around." As she waited, the city's relentless hum filled the silence. She clenched her hands, willing herself to stop replaying the evening in her mind. Lucas had promised a weekend away, a chance to mend what was fraying. But the memory of his fleeting glances toward Vanessa, the way he'd slipped away without a second thought, gnawed at her. The sleek black limousine pulled up and the door was opened for her. She slid in, sinking into the plush leather, but the comfort did little to ease the unease coiling in her chest. "Straight home, ma'am?" the driver asked. "Yes, thank you," she murmured, resting her head against the window. As the city lights blurred into streaks, Sophia closed her eyes, her mind drifting to the years she and Lucas had shared. He had once been her world, a man who made her feel seen, cherished. Now he felt like a stranger, his warmth replaced by an icy distance she couldn't penetrate. When the car pulled into the driveway of their sprawling estate, Sophia stepped out, her heels clicking against the cobblestone path. The house loomed before her, its grandeur suddenly oppressive. She pushed open the front door, the familiar scent of polished wood and jasmine candles greeting her. "Lucas," she called out, though she knew he wasn't home. He hadn't even told her he was leaving the gala. The silence was deafening, the kind that settled deep into her bones. She slipped off her heels, the cool marble floor grounding her as she made her way to the living room. That's when she saw it, a glint of something foreign against the Persian rug. Sophia paused, her breath catching as she bent down. A diamond earring, delicate and unmistakably expensive, rested in her palm. Her stomach tightened. It wasn't hers. Sophia stared at the earring, 1,000 thoughts racing through her mind. It could be from a guest, she told herself. Someone might have dropped it during one of their countless dinner parties. But as she stood there, clutching the jewel, the gnawing doubt she had tried to suppress all evening began to claw its way to the surface. "Stop it," she whispered to herself, setting the earring down on the coffee table with trembling fingers. "Don't jump to conclusions." But as she straightened, something else caught her attention. A faint sound drifting from upstairs. Laughter. Muffled, but distinctly feminine. Her chest tightened as she turned toward the grand staircase. Each step she took felt heavier than the last, her mind warring between disbelief and a growing sense of dread. She reached the top and paused, her hand gripping the railing. From the direction of the master bedroom, she heard it again. A soft giggle, followed by a low murmur she couldn't quite make out. Sophia's heart pounded in her ears as she took a tentative step forward, her breath shallow. "Lucas?" she called out, her voice barely audible. The laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by an almost suffocating silence. Sophia's pulse quickened. She forced herself to move, her bare feet silent against the carpeted hallway. Her hand hovered over the bedroom door, but she hesitated, her mind screaming at her to turn back. What if she was wrong? What if this was some cruel misunderstanding? But deep down, she already knew. Something had shifted tonight. Something she could no longer ignore. She placed her ear against the door, her breath hitching as she strained to hear. The faint rustle of sheets, a whispered word she couldn't decipher. It was enough to make her stomach twist. Sophia stepped back, her hand trembling as it brushed against the doorknob. Her heart raced, every instinct screaming for her to either confront or flee. Sophia's breath caught in her throat the moment she stepped into the bedroom, her feet frozen in place, her heart hammering against her ribcage. The door had creaked open just enough to reveal the chaotic scene unfolding before her. Lucas, her Lucas, tangled in the sheets with Vanessa. The laughter echoed through the room, a mocking, sharp sound that sliced through the air, each chuckle from Vanessa like a strike to her chest. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, only feel the rush of blood that seemed to drain from her face. It was as though the world had tilted off its axis, spinning out of control. The warmth of the room, the faint scent of lavender in the air, all suddenly felt suffocating. Vanessa's laugh was a shrill, grating noise that pricked at her skin, the sound of betrayal taking shape in the soft glow of the afternoon light. There they were. Lucas, the man she'd trusted with her heart, the man who had promised her loyalty, now reduced to nothing more than a stranger. A cold, distant figure in the bed he once shared with her alone. Sophia's chest heaved as her eyes locked onto the scene. Vanessa's fingers trailed over Lucas's bare chest, her nails gliding with a familiarity that made Sophia's stomach churn. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides, but her body remained frozen, as though her mind was struggling to comprehend what her eyes were witnessing. Sophia... Lucas's voice cut through the haze of disbelief, low and strained, but the words were meaningless. It wasn't the apology she'd been hoping for, the regret or remorse that should have been there. It was an acknowledgement of her presence, nothing more. Vanessa, ever the opportunist, straightened up in bed, her lips curling into a smug smile. Well, look who decided to finally show up. Her voice dripped with condescension, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Sophia's heart pounded and her vision blurred, the room spinning even faster as her world collided with reality. She felt as though she were suffocating beneath the weight of the humiliation, the rage, and the heartbreak all clawing their way to the surface. She wanted to scream, to shout, to demand answers, but the words wouldn't come. Her body trembled with the force of her emotions, every muscle straining to keep her upright. Lucas sat up, his expression guarded, as if he wasn't sure how to respond. But his eyes, those eyes she had once trusted with everything, avoided hers. He couldn't even meet her gaze. That was enough. That single silent betrayal spoke louder than any words ever could. "What is this, Lucas?" Sophia's voice was barely above a whisper, the rawness of her pain leaking into every syllable. You've been with her this whole time?" Lucas finally turned to face her, his brow furrowing. "Sophia, Don't," she interrupted, her voice hardening, the venom slipping into her tone. "I don't want to hear it." Vanessa rolled her eyes, clearly enjoying the discomfort. "Oh, please, you knew what was going on. Don't act like you're some innocent little lamb in all of this. Lucas and I have been having a lot of fun together, haven't we, darling?" Sophia's fists shook at her sides. The sound of Vanessa's taunting words, the way she spoke so casually about their betrayal, burned deep. She wanted to run, to escape, but something in her snapped. She wasn't going to walk away from this. Not this time. With a deep breath, Sophia took a step forward, her heels clicking against the floor, each step a declaration of defiance. "No more games, Lucas. No more lies." Her eyes flashed with a cold fury she hadn't known she was capable of. "I want the truth. Now." Lucas's expression faltered, and for a brief moment she saw it. A flicker of guilt, a shadow of regret. But then it was gone, hidden behind the walls he'd built around himself. His lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, he reached for the sheets, trying to shield himself from her gaze, but it was too late. The damage had been done. Vanessa raised an eyebrow, her smirk widening. "Oh, don't worry, sweetheart. He's not going to tell you anything you haven't already figured out." She leaned in closer to Lucas, running her fingers along his arm, the intimacy of their touch more painful than any words. "He's mine now." Sophia's chest tightened, and she took another step closer, ignoring the burning humiliation threatening to consume her. "You think you've won?" she asked, her voice cold and steady. "You haven't. You've just made a mistake. And I'm going to make sure you regret it." She turned to leave, the urge to flee almost overwhelming, but Lucas's voice stopped her. "Sophia, don't go. Please." "Why should I stay, Lucas?" She spun around, her eyes blazing with a mix of heartbreak and fury. Why should I stay when everything I thought I knew about you was a lie? She didn't wait for an answer. She didn't need one. The silence that followed was louder than anything he could have said. With a lingering glance, she walked out of the room, the sound of the door slamming behind her echoing like the final nail in the coffin of their shattered relationship. This was a mess, but she wasn't going to be the loser. If he wanted to play games with her, then she was ready to play.